Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and this is the Not So Serious Keto video podcast. Last week's podcast apparently triggered a few people because I got more dislikes as a ratio than I've gotten on, I think, probably any video that I've made. Not that it was, especially bad. I think I was still over 97% liked, but it was interesting to see the number of thumbs down that I received. So clearly, I pushed a few buttons. And I think I'm going to push a few more today. So one of the things that I said that I got some comments on was that I don't really think that as a celebrity there is a lot of upside to stating your political position out on social media. We're in such a hyper-partisan, pretty much split down the middle sort of position in the United States here that by stating your political beliefs, you run the risk, I think, of potentially alienating about half of your fan base. And that's what I was driving at in the first part of my conversation about Alton Brown. Now, it just happened to be Alton Brown because he had done it like the day or two before I did the podcast, so it was fresh in my mind as sort of a news story. It could have been Guy Fieri or Giada De Laurentiis or anyone from the Food Network or any celebrity, but I felt, since this is sort of a food channel, it was an appropriate sort of story to share. And interestingly, in the comments, I had people from sort of the political right that felt I was a lefty, and I had people from the left feeling that I was perhaps a righty. The reality is, I am an independent. I'm an independent thinker, and I am an independent voter. So we can put that one to bed right now. I also had a number of people accusing me of hating on Alton Brown. I was not hating on Alton Brown. I love Alton Brown. Specifically, the Good Eats years. I don't know that I could be a bigger fan of Alton Brown during the Good Eats years. But then Good Eats ended and he wound up doing Iron Chef and Cutthroat Kitchen and other stuff that just didn't really work for me. I don't know if that's, Alton's decision or if that was the Food Network's decision. Doesn't matter. It just, that I wasn't a fan of. But that doesn't make me any less of a fan of his earlier stuff. I learned so much from Alton Brown and Good Eats. And his cookbooks, I've actually got every single one of his books, and they are often my go-to for information. So when I did that bit on Alton Brown's tweets, it to me was really more about Twitter and the fact that I just think Twitter is fraught with danger. Of all the social media platforms out there, I don't know of one where you can find more anger and hatred and venom. A lot of people, a lot of smart people even, say some stupid things out on Twitter. If you think about any news story that you've ever read about someone tweeting something stupid, it usually includes the phrase, the tweet, since deleted. Well, clearly people, as they tweet something, are realizing, oh, maybe that was stupid or inappropriate, or it just didn't translate well. The sarcasm was funny in my brain, but not so much once I actually typed it out. So they delete it. It's just, I think it's got that aspect to it, this sort of like drunken text sort of aspect to it. You've got this limited amount of space, 240 characters, to convey some sort of an idea. And you can do it super quickly, and I think that is the first sort of danger element to it all. If in order to tweet, you had to take a 3x5 note card and write out your tweet and count the characters and make sure that you're under 240 characters, and then put that 3x5 note card into an envelope and address it to Twitter Central and put a stamp on it and walk it out to the mailbox and wait for the mailman to pick it up the next day, I think probably more than 50% of the tweets would just go away because that's too much work. I think probably close to the other 50% would go away because people will have a little opportunity to cool down overnight or even within an hour or two and decide, maybe I shouldn't have tweeted that. And they'd walk out to the mailbox and grab the envelope and rip it up. Maybe what Twitter needs is sort of a cool down period. After you hit send, there's like an hour or 2 hour countdown before it actually sends out the tweet so that you can rethink it. Another one of the dangers of Twitter, in my opinion, is that because you're tweeting in like these little bite-sized chunks of 240 characters or less, it's remarkably easy to take any single tweet out of context. So you could be in a lengthy tweet thread where you say, so let's just say it's 10 tweets long, And 9 out of those 10 tweets are kind and benevolent and funny and just benign. And you put one in there that's maybe a little bit off color or a little bit sarcastic, or perhaps there's something that could be taken wrong from a racial or sexual or political or religious standpoint. People are going to forget about the other 9 tweets. They're going to hone right in on that one tweet. That's the one that's going to get extracted and find itself showing up on the news sources. And for the last element that I think is sort of a problem with Twitter, I think about an interview with Jeffrey Skilling. So Jeffrey Skilling, along with Ken Lay, were the 2 primary culprits in the Enron scandal. And I think he's probably in jail for the rest of his life. But he was being interviewed in jail, and I think it might have been like 60 Minutes with Leslie Stahl, and she asked Jeffrey Skilling, "What have you learned from all of this?" And his response was, "Sarcasm doesn't play well with a jury." And they showed some clips when he was on trial, and he was very cocky, very sarcastic, and that was his big takeaway. Don't be sarcastic when you're on trial. Not like don't commit fraud or don't use mark-to-market accounting to inflate your numbers, and don't wind up destroying the life savings and retirement of thousands of people. No, that wasn't his learning. His learning was, I shouldn't be so sarcastic when I'm on trial, because sarcasm doesn't play well. And similarly, sarcasm doesn't always play real well in the written word. If you're in a bad mood and you read something, you're going to interpret it different than if you're in a good mood and you read something. If you see something that's sort of out of context, you may not know that it's sarcasm. So long story short, I just think Twitter is not a great platform to get a message across. And, I haven't seen a tweet from Alton since election night. So maybe he's in a little bit of a cool down period, reassessing whether Twitter is the best mode to interact with his fans or not. I can say that I discovered that I do have a Twitter account for Serious Keto. And I know that when I was first establishing Serious Keto, I got out onto the various social media platforms, so Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and probably Reddit, Pinterest. I'm not sure if there's any others. But I got out, made sure that I had the Serious Keto name sort of buttoned down. That way no one could come in and register that name and go and send nasty tweets or things like that might come back and make me look bad. And initially, what I would do is, I think there's an option on Instagram to also copy to Twitter. And I was doing that for a while, but it's been over a year since I've even done any sort of a tweet. And even then, it wasn't a direct tweet. It was sort of here's my Instagram thing that I just did. But once I opened up my Twitter account, I saw that I had 75 notifications, messages from maybe some of you. And I've not read them. It's been over the course of a year that these messages have come in, never saw them. So if you tried to reach out to me in Twitter and didn't get a response, please don't think it's because I'm a big jerk. Maybe I am a big jerk, but that isn't the reason why I didn't reply. It's just because I don't open Twitter. So hopefully that clarifies a few things from last week. Maybe it punches a few more buttons, touches a few more nerves, or maybe it doesn't. One other thing you may have noticed from last week is I do now have a brief little logo intro on my cooking videos. I worked with one of my viewers, Hector Flores. He's got a channel called Video Flow. He likes doing this sort of stuff. In fact, I'll link to his channel down below if you feel like checking it out. But he emailed me and said, I'd be happy to create an intro for you. What do you think it would look like? And I did my best to describe it in email, and it's like he knew exactly what I was thinking. It was amazing. What he came back with on the first pass was almost perfection. And we did a couple little tweaks after that, and we got it where it is now, and I couldn't be happier with it. So thank you very much, Hector. You know what, I tell you what, well, I'll show it to you right now. It looks like this. An interesting thing that I've noticed lately, I was looking up one of my own recipes because I don't have them all committed to memory. So I got out onto my website. I wanted to make those buns that Don, aka Calgary Guy, and I worked together on. I got out and they were down to a 3.8 rating or something like that. And as I started, or 3.8 stars. And as I started looking through my recipes, I was seeing all of them really have taken a hit. I'm thinking to myself, wow, how did this happen? And sort of simultaneously, the manufacturer of the recipe card plugin that I use released a version that allows you to go in and take a look at all your different ratings and, when you were rated, by whom, and so on. And I saw this significant amount of people coming in as a guest, so not logging in, not leaving a name, nothing like that, one-starring me. I would see guest come in and one-star across every single one of my recipes over the course of a 15-minute period. So someone has been going in specifically in certain blocks every few days and just one-starring every single one of my recipes. So I've set it up now that if you want to give it a star rating, you do need to put in your name. And I didn't want it to have to be that way, but if you have someone going out and actively sabotaging your work, I kind of felt I had no other choice. One of the things that I talk a lot about with regards to keto and what I love about keto is the lack of inflammation. So basically anything that's got an itis at the end of it, that's inflammation. Tendinitis, arthritis, colitis, etc. And as I've said in the past, I never really knew what inflammation was until it went away. But when I eat something that I'm not supposed to, something that causes inflammation, I become acutely aware of it, and very much reminded of why I've chosen keto as my way of life. And I mentioned when I did the resistant starch videos, this would have been both the second video, which was on rice, and the third video, which was on potatoes, is that I felt the return of inflammation. I felt it in my knees, felt it in my knuckles, maybe a little bit in my elbows. So I'm going to go just ever so slightly TMI here. Not like full out, gross out TMI, but probably more information than you want if you're currently eating. So if you are, just set that fork down for a second. When I finished doing that potato video, where I had potatoes 4 times over the course of about a week, I absolutely was feeling inflammation in my knees. But about a day after that, I started noticing that my scalp was a little bit itchy and I had some sort of crusties going on. Not dandruff, but it almost felt like little scabs. I also wound up having a bit of a rash in each of my armpits as well. And I noticed for the first time in over a year, almost instantly, I got a skin tag down in my armpit. And I'd mentioned in previous videos that after being keto for a while, my skin tags were gone. There were none on my body, and now here, just like overnight, I had a skin tag in my armpit. So my wife took a picture of my scalp, and she's a nurse, and she does, a bunch of different surgeries, but she also works with a dermatologist, and the dermatologist looked at it and said, "Your husband has folliculitis." I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's basically your hair follicles, where they attach, get inflamed. So inflammation. Coincidence? Same thing, the rash in the armpits. It seems rather coincidental that this stuff just happened right after eating a whole bunch of potatoes. Or at least a whole bunch for me, given that I haven't really eaten potatoes in the last year and a half or more. Now I got some shampoo that's, got me almost 100% cured of the hair stuff. Now for the armpits, I quit using deodorant because I didn't want to do anything that was going to further irritate them. So no deodorant, no antiperspirant for a week and a half. Now before you start thinking, ooh, that's kind of gross, this is kind of wild. I haven't been sweating. And I'm not making any BO. It's nuts. Because I used to absolutely destroy the armpits on my shirts. So as I've mentioned in the past, I used to work in corporate America. Pretty much my standard outfit was khaki slacks and generally a white Oxford. And I would pit out so hard. I would sweat through my t-shirt and through my shirt by 10 in the morning. It was gross. And every single shirt I had, t-shirts I was constantly throwing away or turning into rags generally because I had completely yellowed up the armpits beyond repair. And it kind of got to be that way with a lot of my dress shirts as well. So I was really expecting that I was going to be maybe sweating a bit, maybe creating a little bit of a funky smell, thank goodness for quarantine. But no, nothing. It's amazing. And I can't help but think that keto is responsible. So from time to time in these podcasts, I ask all of you if there were any other unexpected side effects you've noticed as a result of going keto, and I'll ask it again right now. Have you experienced anything like this? The lack of BO, the lack of sweating, or anything else that's especially awesome that most people don't think about as a benefit of keto? Let me know down in the comments below. In terms of last week's Easter egg, the gamers figured it out. We've got Claptrap and Handsome Jack from the Borderlands series of video games. Fun stuff. Now, before I wrap up this podcast, I'm going to give you a little game that you can play on YouTube. And I discovered this game completely by accident. When you're creating a thumbnail for a video on YouTube, one of the options that you have is to use a still frame from your video. Your video starts playing and you hit pause, and then there's like a frame forward, frame backward button, and you try and find a picture that doesn't make you look like you're having a seizure or an aneurysm or you're drunk or something like that. And there are remarkably few frames where I don't look like that when I hit pause. It's weird because I can't make one of those faces on purpose. I can't just make like a face. Like that face right there looks probably pretty handsome compared to what you would hit if you just hit pause right now. Don't do it though. Don't hit pause right now. Wait till I'm done. And then do it on someone else's channel too. But I found that going through any of my videos and then going through other people's videos where you see their face, hit pause. Just randomly hit pause, unpause, repause, and you'll get a laugh. You'll get a chuckle. There are some crazy looking faces that we make, little micro expressions that we're probably not aware that we can even do, that we do just in the course of talking. And if you are a fellow content creator, take a look at some of your own videos. Try this out. Hit pause. You'll probably get a chuckle out of it. Or maybe you'll just start to feel a lot more self-conscious. I don't know. So I think that's it for what I've got today. A little bit shorter one, I think, but we got Thanksgiving coming up. People probably need to start getting prepped, so I'll just let you go. I wish you a very happy Thanksgiving, and thanks for watching or listening.